3 years. That's how long Willow and I had been bound together, not by love, but by a contract everyone else called marriage. A perfect business arrangement, they said. Power and prestige wrapped in wedding vows. So when she asked me to attend a party in her place, saying she was working late, I didn't think twice. That's how our marriage worked. Quiet transactions of time and obligation. She promised to pick me up afterward, but as the night dragged on and the rain began to mist against the windows, her promise dissolved like smoke. Guests drifted out one by one. Laughter echoed down the hallway, fading into the drizzle outside. "George, need a ride? Has your wife not shown up yet?" Someone asked kindly. I forced a smile, the kind that hides everything. "She's probably stuck in traffic." "Go on ahead." But inside, something cold and sharp was spreading. Half an hour later, when my patience was spent, I pulled out my phone to call a cab. That's when her message came in. "Still working. Just call a cab yourself." No apology, no warmth, just distance. I should have expected it. On the ride home, my phone buzzed again, this time from David, my oldest friend. "Guess where I am right now," he teased. I groaned, half amused, half tired. "If you're about to mess around, I swear—" Then came the video. A dimly lit restaurant, the glow of golden chandeliers. And there, caught between the flicker of candlelight and the murmur of conversation, was Willow, smiling. Really smiling, sitting across from a man I knew all too well. Makoto, her first love, the one who had once owned her entire heart before life and I came along. David's voice cut through the clip. "Didn't expect Makoto to come back, huh? Heard he just landed tonight." And in that moment, everything clicked. The excuses, the overtime, the rain. I didn't reply. Didn't rage. Didn't even feel the need to ask why. I just sent her the pictures and left it at that. No message, no confrontation. Because honestly, what was there left to save? Our marriage had always been an alliance, not a love story. By the time I got home, the city was drenched. The house stood silent and dark, like it had been waiting for this moment of truth. I poured a glass of cold water, let it burn down my throat, and told myself this was fine, that I'd seen it coming. But the thing about pretending you don't care is that your chest still aches anyway. Later, as the rain hammered harder against the windows, her message arrived. "Rain's too heavy. Might not make it back tonight." I laughed. Not the kind that eases pain, the kind that tells you you're done feeling it. We were the perfect match, remember? A marriage built on family expectations and mutual benefit. She gave her name. I gave mine. Together, we built a facade the world applauded. But behind closed doors, it was just quiet. Cold, polite quiet. I'd once thought maybe over time love would find its way in, that maybe someday she'd look at me like she looked at him tonight. But 3 years later, all I got was distance dressed as stability. And then came the morning. The sky was pale, the kind of gray that bleeds into everything. I was half asleep when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Soft, hesitant. The front door creaked open. Willow. It was barely 5 a.m. If she was going to stay out, she could have at least stayed until the storm stopped. But instead, she slipped into the room and stood beside the bed. I could feel her watching me, waiting for me to say something. I didn't. Then suddenly she reached for my blanket, trying to pull it back like nothing had happened. I opened my eyes, caught her hand, and muttered, "Crazy," before turning away. Her face looked tired. Dark circles beneath her eyes, her hair slightly undone, still wearing the same clothes as last night. She smelled like rain and someone else's company. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't anger anymore. It was clarity. Our marriage hadn't just cracked last night. It had been over long before either of us admitted it. She didn't expect my silence to cut deeper than words ever could. "I was just fixing your blanket," Willow said softly, her voice small, like she was testing the air between us, before stepping back out of the room. When I finally woke again, the sun was already pouring through the windows, washing the room in gold. I found her in the living room, dressed down in loungewear, quietly eating breakfast as if nothing had happened. I sat across from her, the chair scraping lightly against the floor. "Don't you want to explain what happened last night?" I asked, my tone flat, almost detached. She looked up, spoon-paused midair. "Makoto just came back to the country," she said. "We haven't seen each other in years. It was just dinner. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to overthink it." I studied her face, the practiced calm, the precision of her words. Then I asked quietly, And after dinner, did you go to a hotel? Her expression flickered just for a second. George, she said sharply, don't say things like that. Once the rain stops, I'll head back. I nodded, picked up the glass in front of me, and took a sip. All right, got it. The calm in my voice unsettled her more than any argument could. She watched me, searching for anger, for hurt, something she could respond to. But there was nothing. I was done giving her emotions to hold over me. I picked up a slice of toast, spread jam over it, slow and steady, like the moment didn't mean anything at all. You don't have anything else to say? She asked finally, her voice trembling just slightly, like she wasn't sure what answer she wanted. I met her eyes, forced a polite smile, and said, Say what? Should I wish you a pleasant meal? For the first time, Willow didn't have words. She looked down and quietly went back to her porridge, as if silence could undo what had already been said. After that day, something shifted, quietly but permanently. I stopped waiting for her. No more watching the clock, no more setting the table for two. When work ran late, I ate at the company cafeteria. Sometimes I stayed at the gym until nightfall. By the time I got home, it was usually past 9. At first, Willow tried to keep up the old routine. Messages like, "Are you coming home for dinner?" still appeared on my phone, but my replies were short, delayed, busy, you eat first. Or sometimes nothing until hours later, already eaten. Eventually, she stopped asking. When the weekend came, I didn't want to stay home, surrounded by quiet walls that used to echo her footsteps. So I called David. He said he had plans. A surprise, he added, which should have been my first warning. The moment I got out of the car, 2 girls in matching school-style uniforms appeared out of nowhere. "Hello, George," they said in unison, smiling like this was some kind of scripted show. I blinked, utterly lost. Do I know you? They just giggled, each taking one of my arms. Mr. David sent us to pick you up. Of course he did. 5 minutes later, I was sitting across from him in a crowded restaurant, the kind that had just enough lighting to pretend it was classy, but not enough to hide the chaos. 2 more girls sat beside him, all smiles and politeness. David leaned back, lighting a cigarette with that same smug grin he'd worn since college. What do you think, huh? Don't worry that they're all over 18. I sighed. Are you out of your mind? What is this? A few nearby diners were staring, some whispering, some smirking in that way men do when they think they understand. David didn't care. He exhaled a smoke ring, pleased with himself. You've been down lately. I figured you could use a little fun. Life's short. Why let her have all the freedom? You deserve a distraction, too. I gave him a look that said more than words could. You're insane. Next time, pick a place with a door that closes. He just laughed, snapping his fingers for the girls to pour tea. Come on, loosen up. You used to be more fun. Remember when I said you should have stayed single with me? Look at me now, free as a bird. I chuckled under my breath, stabbing a piece of pumpkin pie with my chopsticks. Right. Free until your mom finds out and breaks your legs. She won't, he said proudly. She's busy with my brother's kids these days. Doesn't even notice I'm gone half the time. He didn't finish. Because at that moment, the waiter walked 2 new guests past our booth. I looked up, and everything around me seemed to fade. Makoto, dressed sharp, calm, the same gentle demeanor I remembered from that video. And beside him, Willow. Her hair perfectly styled, her expression poised, controlled, like last night had never happened. She was wearing a beige trench coat, the kind that whispered quiet elegance. The waiter led them to a booth just a few seats away. Makoto, ever the gentleman, pulled out her chair. She gave a small nod before sitting, her side profile catching, the light just enough for me to see the faintest trace of a smile. David noticed them too. His grin faltered. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. And that's when I realized the storm from that night hadn't really passed. It had just followed me indoors. His mouth fell open in disbelief, the peanut slipping from his fingers back into the bowl. What the hell? He muttered, then mouthed silently at me. What kind of fate is this? I paused mid-sip, my teacup hovering just inches from my lips, before I turned away and said flatly, What's there to look at? Eat your food. The 2 JK girls beside me caught the sudden shift in the air. Their laughter faded, their posture straightened. Even David, always loud and teasing, went quiet. His eyes flicked between our table and the one diagonally across, nervous, excited, like he was watching a scene he wasn't supposed to witness. I kept eating, pretending everything was normal. I hadn't expected to run into them today. What a joke. Fate, huh? David leaned closer, lowering his voice. Want me to go over and say hello? Without looking up, I said, Are you an idiot? Eat. And then, as if she'd heard my voice from across the room, Willow turned. Her eyes swept over David and the two girls beside me. That flash of disdain so fast you'd almost miss it. But when her gaze landed on me, the noise of the restaurant seemed to vanish. For a heartbeat, she looked surprised. Then that surprise hardened into something colder, measured, distant. Her eyes lingered on my face before flicking to the two girls at my sides. Her brow tightened, almost imperceptibly. Ice settled in her expression. I didn't look away. I just met her stare and let a small, unreadable smile tug at my lips. She was the first to break eye contact, turning to whisper something to Makoto. He followed her gaze, saw me, and froze. Then, with an awkward politeness, he nodded. I returned it with the faintest twitch of a smile. Damn! How does he still have the nerve to smile? David grumbled. Eat, I said again, reaching for another bite of pork ribs, acting as though nothing had happened. But the table had gone still. The light conversation, the fake laughter, gone. Everyone felt it. The tension hung heavy in the air. Across the room, I could see Willow and Makoto talking. Couldn't hear them, but their body language said enough. Calm, familiar, maybe even comfortable. I finished my meal quickly. Let's go, I said, wiping my mouth and standing. As we passed their table, I didn't look at her, not even once. David lingered, though, his grin sharp and mocking before we left. Outside, the sunlight was harsh, burning through the quiet. David lit a cigarette, cursing under his breath. Damn, what bad luck, running into those two lovebirds. You sure you're okay with this, George? I smiled faintly. What should I do? Flip the table? He snorted. You could at least hit her with the prenup. She cheats. She gets nothing. I could even find you a PI. I cut him off with a laugh. And have you send us both to jail? No thanks. He sighed, and I clapped his shoulder. Next time, pick a place more private. Back home, though, fate wasn't done playing games. Willow was already there, slipping off her coat when I walked in. Our eyes met. I said nothing, just changed my shoes and headed for the bedroom. George, she called, stopping me mid-step. I turned, calm. What is it? Her eyes searched, mine, filled with something between irritation and insecurity. Are you not going to explain anything? I leaned against the wall. Explain what? I had lunch with David. Don't overthink it. Her face darkened instantly. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. Makoto and I are just friends, meeting up, she snapped. But those girls with you, they were not just friends. I let out a quiet chuckle. Oh, so it's fine when you have lunch with your ex in a fancy restaurant, but when I grab food with a friend and a few waitresses pour tea, that's suddenly a crime? Her anger cracked through her composure. George, we need to talk. About what? That you're giving your friend advice about the market? She nodded quickly, grasping for reason. Yes. That's all it was. I met her gaze, my tone flat but not unkind. I believe you. That caught her off guard. No fight, no accusation, no sarcasm, just quiet acceptance. So, she stammered, you're not trying to get back at me by doing this with David? I exhaled slowly. You're overthinking it, Willow. I don't have time for games. I've just figured things out. And I didn't look at her expression again. Whatever she was feeling, anger, confusion, regret, I didn't want to see it. I turned, walked straight into the bedroom, and closed the door behind me. That night, sleep didn't come easy. Half awake, I thought I heard the bedroom door open and close, the soft echo of footsteps fading down the hallway. Willow. She must have been pacing, thinking, hesitating, but never knocking. The days that followed felt like winter had settled inside our home. We weren't fighting, not out loud anyway, but every word, every glance carried a chill. Then one evening I came home and saw her dragging a small suitcase to the car. She didn't say a word, just got in, started the engine, and drove off. No confrontation, no goodbye, just silence. That night my phone buzzed. A message from Willow. Busy with work lately, staying at my parents' for a few days. Easier for overtime. I stared at the screen for a long while before typing a single word. Okay. For a moment I saw those 3 little dots. The other party is typing. Flicker on the screen. But no reply ever came. The chat went still, just like everything else between us. After that, home didn't feel like home anymore. I threw myself into work instead. Days blurred together under fluorescent lights and late. Nights at the office. Even David, usually loud and unfiltered, started calling less. Until one evening, his voice came through the phone over a noisy bar backdrop. "Where are you, man? Don't tell me you're working again. I've got a get-together tonight. Real fun crowd." "You in?" "Working overtime," I said, keeping it short. He laughed. "No way. You of all people working overtime? I've got some art school girls tonight. Proper ones, classy." "Really working overtime," I cut him off. "Big project. Next time." There was a pause. Then softer, he said, "All right, bro. Take care of yourself, yeah?" When the call ended, the silence in my office felt heavier than usual. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling when the intercom buzzed. "Mr. Wang," my assistant said, "Mr. Makoto Ito is here. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's important. Should I let him in?" "Makoto." I hesitated, jaw tightening. "Send him in." Moments later, he walked in, polished, calm, wearing that perfect suit and that perfect smile that never reached his eyes. "Mr. Wang," he greeted smoothly. "Sorry to drop in unannounced." "No need for formalities," I said. "What brings you here?" He smiled, easy, relaxed, practiced. "I just met with Willow. Since I was nearby, I thought I'd say hello. After all, we're both alumni." So that's what this was. A power move wrapped in politeness. "You just met with my wife?" I said, slowly raising an eyebrow. "Seems like you two have quite the connection." Makoto leaned forward slightly, his voice calm but calculated. "It's nothing like that. We're just friends." For a moment, the air between us went still. I leaned back, tapping my fingers on the desk, not answering, just watching him squirm behind that flawless composure. He went on, tone gentle. "I think there's been some misunderstanding. Willow, she values deep connections. She can be stubborn sometimes, doesn't always know when to step back. I'm only here to say maybe someone should." A faint chuckle escaped me. "Mr. Ito," I said, toying with my pen, "are you giving me marital advice?" "As her ex?" His smile faltered. "Please don't misunderstand, Mr. Wang. I just don't want to see 2 good people hurting over something trivial." "Don't worry about it," I said coolly, pressing the intercom button. "Show him out." The finality in my voice left no room for argument. Makoto stood, his mask slipping just a little as he nodded and walked out. I watched from the window as his figure appeared outside, standing on the curb, talking on the phone before disappearing into a cab. Later that night, around 8, I drove home. The garage was still half empty, her car missing from its usual spot. I loosened my tie, already planning a shower and a quiet dinner. But when I stepped into the living room, there she was, Willow, sitting on the sofa, waiting. Her expression was serious, not angry, not sad, just tired. "George," she said, her voice steady. "We need to talk." I sat across from her, calm. "Talk about what?" She hesitated, eyes searching mine. "Did Makoto come to see you today?" Her tone wasn't curious. It was certain. She already knew. "Yeah," I said. "Your ex was pretty enthusiastic. Even brought fruit." Her brow furrowed. "What did you two talk about?" I smiled faintly. "Not much. Just that your ex is a little impatient, asked when I plan to divorce you." Her face went pale. "How could he say that?" She whispered. "George, that's not true. There's a limit to the lies you can tell." "Believe it or not," I said quietly, crossing one leg over the other. "He also told me as an old friend I should be generous. Let you find your second spring. Her voice trembled with anger. Makoto would never say that.
How could he not?
I interrupted. He even dared to provoke me face to face, said the one who isn't loved is the real third wheel. And that the night he came back, you left me to find him. That was his proof. The words hung in the air, sharp and heavy, and for the first time, Willow didn't respond. He even said that with just one phone call, you'd come running to him, rain, storm, or snow. I laughed bitterly. Can't believe that ex of yours still has that kind of pull. Over 30, yet he's got you under some kind of spell. No wonder after 3 years of marriage, you've never really looked at me the same way. My voice was calm, too calm, the kind that cuts deeper than shouting. Turns out the two of you never really let go, huh? Still keeping in touch, still keeping each other around. I just don't get it. If you're still so deeply in love, why break up in the first place? Was it fun to test heartbreak? Or maybe he's had his fun and now he's back, trying to pick up the pieces. Willow's face went pale, then green with disbelief. My words were sharp, relentless, each one heavier than the last. Her lips trembled as she tried to speak, but I didn't let her. I kept going until there was nothing left to throw. And then silence, the kind that fills the room like smoke. Only the sound of her breathing remained, uneven, angry, hurt. You're lying, she finally managed, her voice shaking. George, are you out of your mind? How could Makoto say something like that? You're slandering him. Slandering? I gave a short, humorless laugh. Believe what you want. The words are out. Whether you take them seriously is your problem, not mine. You can call your old friend right now if you want. Ask him if he's ready to play the hero again. Her eyes burned into me, filled with rage, disbelief, and something else. A flicker of fear. She searched my face, desperate to find some hint of a lie. But all she found was coldness. You're impossible, she spat, her voice trembling. She grabbed her handbag and turned on her heel. The sound of her high heels clapped hard against the marble floor, echoing through the quiet apartment until, bang! The front door slammed shut. I didn't move, didn't shout, didn't chase her. I just walked to the bar, poured myself a glass of whiskey, and listened to the ice cubes clink softly against the glass. That delicate sound was the only thing left alive in the room. That night, Willow didn't come home, and just like that, silence became our new language. When relatives asked about her in the family group chat, I said she was busy, big project at work, staying at her parents' to focus. She didn't bother correcting me. That silence was her answer too. David tried checking in a few times, his usual voice now laced with concern. George, why are you doing this to yourself? Want me to come over for a drink? It's fine, I said lightly. Just busy. When the call ended, I looked out the window. The sky was gray, swollen with rain that hadn't started yet. A week later, I attended a major industry summit, one of those events where couples were expected to show up together, hand in hand, playing the picture-perfect pair. I went alone, but fate had other plans. They seated me and Willow at the same table, of all people, of all places. And she wasn't alone. Makoto was with her. She wore a silver evening gown that shimmered under the chandeliers. He stood beside her, perfectly composed, perfectly charming, smiling like he owned the night. The air turned awkward the moment they walked in. Willow saw me. Her face drained of color. She took a small step as if to switch seats, but Makoto, ever the gentleman, pulled a chair for her and said softly, "Sit here. You'll have a better view." I almost laughed. A better view indeed. I took my seat, ignoring them, letting the dull hum of conversation wash over me. Halfway through dinner, the waiter served hot soup. Mushroom chicken, her favorite. But as soon as the bowl was set down, Willow covered her mouth and gagged softly. It was subtle, but not subtle enough. The entire table froze. Makoto immediately leaned in, handing her a glass of water. His hand hovered over her back. Are you all right? Maybe you've been working too hard. The tone, the touch, it was all too intimate. One of the older bosses, clueless to the tension, chuckled. Ah, Miss Liu, could it be good news? Congratulations, Mr. Wang, Mr. Wang. Congratulations, I felt something snap. I set my chopsticks down, wiped my mouth with a napkin, and looked straight at Willow. My voice was calm, dangerously calm. Is that so? Then I suppose we should find out if it's just a bad stomach. Or something worth congratulating. The table went dead silent. After a pause, I looked at Makoto, my eyes cold. After all, what if it's just indigestion? The boss who had joked earlier turned crimson, mumbling something as the rest of the table stared at their plates. I tugged at my tie and gave a polite smile. Sorry, everyone. Please enjoy the meal. I'm not feeling too well. No one said a word as I walked out. Outside, I sat in the car for a while, breathing against the steering wheel. My phone buzzed again and again. Willow. I hit mute, started the engine, drove off. At the intersection, under the cold glow of a streetlight, I saw her, standing in that thin silver dress, shivering in the night air. When she spotted my car, she ran toward it, desperation all over her face. I slammed on the brakes. "George!" she shouted, pounding on the window. "Get out! We need to talk!" I rolled the window down just enough. Talk about what? What was that? What you said in front of everyone? Her voice cracked, part fury, part heartbreak. I looked at her blankly. Did I say anything wrong? Maybe it's just a bad stomach, unless... I leaned back, my tone turning quiet, almost cruel. You can't actually be pregnant, can you? Because that would be strange. I had a vasectomy almost a year ago. Clink. Her phone slipped from her hand, hitting the pavement with a sharp sound. She froze, staring at me, trembling. Words failed her completely, and I just drove off into the night. She froze, her voice trembling as if the words might shatter in the air. When did you... Vasectomy, I said like it was nothing. Yeah, it's true. Her face went blank. No, it's impossible. You can't have had a vasectomy. The words came out in pieces like she was trying to convince herself. Then suddenly her eyes snapped back to me, wild and desperate. That joke isn't funny, George. I stopped smiling. The room felt heavier. I'm not joking. My voice was quiet, sharp enough to cut. So tell me, what are you planning to do about the bastard child in your belly? Her lips parted, but no sound came. She repeated the words back to me, hollow, like she couldn't believe they were real. Bastard child. Her voice broke on the second word, her disbelief spilling into anger. George, do you even know what you're saying? I do, I said, calm, too calm. I said the child in your belly is a bastard. Each word dropped like a stone in water, cold, measured, cruel. You're lying. I'm not pregnant, she finally screamed, her voice shaking. And how could I be? As my husband, you went behind my back and got a vasectomy without even telling me. I looked at her, suddenly feeling tired. The fight, the anger, it all felt hollow. If you're not pregnant, I said, my tone flat again, then go get checked. Prove it. I gripped the steering wheel. Now move aside. I'm leaving. She didn't move. She just stood there staring, as if she couldn't quite recognize the man in front of her anymore. I rolled the window up, shutting her out. Her voice, her eyes, everything. Then I pressed the gas and the car disappeared into the night. The phone rang the next evening. David's name flashed on the screen. Guess what? He practically shouted. You'll never believe who I just saw outside the OB/GYN clinic, Willow. My fingers tightened around the wine glass. What was she doing there? No clue. She looked pale as death, totally out of it. She came out and almost walked into the door. He gave a low whistle. Bro, you think she's pregnant? With your kid? None of my business. What if it is yours? You're a jerk, but at least I know you can... Go to hell. I hung up, the irritation wouldn't fade. OB/GYN clinic. Pale. Distracted. The last time we'd been together was over 2 months ago. Could it be... Had she really... I shoved the thought away. The next few days passed in uneasy silence. Willow didn't come home. Didn't call. I buried myself in work, but the frustration clung to me like static, always there, just beneath the surface. Then one afternoon, my phone lit up again. My mother-in-law. George, come over for dinner tonight. Your father-in-law caught a big fish. He's insisting on cooking for you, she said, cheerful as ever. I sighed. Mom, I might not make it tonight. I've got something to do. What's more important than dinner with family? She shot back. It's been ages since you came home. Willow's been staying here for weeks and you still haven't shown up. There was no way out. I agreed. That night I drove to the Liu family villa. The moment I walked in, I knew something was off. In the living room sat not just my in-laws, but my parents too. 4 elders. One couch, no smiles. Willow was sitting alone, a little distance away, her head bowed. Her hands were trembling slightly as she held a glass of water. She didn't even look at me. My chest tightened. This wasn't dinner. This was judgment. "George is here," my mother-in-law said with a forced smile. "Come sit." My parents exchanged glances, heavy, uneasy ones. The meal started in awkward silence. My father-in-law tried to break it with small talk about the fish he'd caught. My mother-in-law asked about the weather, the news, anything to keep things normal. But the air stayed stiff, brittle, waiting for the real reason we were all there. Finally, after I set my chopsticks down, the sound of porcelain broke the silence, my mother's teacup hitting the table. "George," she said quietly, her voice shaking with contained emotion. "We called you here today to ask, what's really going on between you and Willow?" There it was. I said nothing, just sipped my tea waiting. My mother-in-law exhaled. "Willow told us about the vasectomy. Is it true?" For a moment, no one breathed. I looked up at Willow. She finally lifted her eyes. The fury I'd seen before was gone. What replaced it was something worse. A kind of deep, defeated sadness. My father spoke next, his voice low and firm. "How could you do something like that without telling her?" "Without telling us? Do you even care about this family anymore?" I felt all four pairs of eyes on me, the weight of expectation, tradition, guilt, and pride pressing down like a storm. And I realized in that moment that no one at that table really wanted the truth. They just wanted a story that made sense. Willow sat there, head bowed, shoulders tense, waiting for my answer like it was a verdict. The air in the room was thick, unmoving. For a second, I almost laughed. The whole situation felt absurd, exhausting. I set my teacup down, leaned back in my chair, and let my eyes sweep across the table before stopping on her pale profile. "I lied to her," I said quietly. The words echoed through the still room. "What?" My mother blinked, stunned. Willow's head shot up, her eyes wide, disbelief written across her face. I gave a dry, humorless smile. "I said the vasectomy was real, but that was a lie. I made it up, just to piss her off. It had started as nothing, a stupid, angry attempt to get under her skin. I never thought it would spiral this far, shaking the ground beneath all of us." For a moment, no one moved. The silence was suffocating. Willow's voice finally broke through it, thin and trembling. What did you just say?" She gripped the edge of the table and rose slowly, her knuckles white. "Say it again, George." "I said I didn't have a vasectomy," I repeated, meeting her eyes. "I made it all up." Then came the sound of my mother's hand slamming against the table, a sharp crack that sliced through the air. "George!" she snapped, furious. "Can you just say anything that comes to your head? Do you even know what you're doing to her?" "Know what?" I shot back, the frustration bubbling up again. My voice dropped, colder. My eyes found Willow's. "Then maybe ask her why she went to the OB/GYN. Why she felt the need to sneak around. The reason's pretty damn clear, isn't it?" I could hear my own pulse in my ears. Her ex shows up and suddenly she's working overtime. She has dinner with him till midnight, then uses the rain as an excuse not to come home. She spends weekends with my friends and brings him along like it's normal. And when he shows up at my office lecturing me about being a better husband, I'm supposed to just sit there. Willow's voice cracked, raw and desperate. "No!" She stood shaking, tears spilling before she could stop them. "I went to the hospital because I thought you really had a vasectomy." The room froze. She was sobbing now, words breaking apart between breaths. "I haven't done anything wrong. I'm not pregnant." But I was scared, terrified, that if I ever did get pregnant and what you said was true, what would people think? What would that make me? Her hands fumbled in her bag, pulling out a folded piece of paper. She slapped it down on the table, her voice cracking. "This is the report." "I'm not pregnant!" No one spoke. "I even asked the doctor," she went on, tears streaking down her face. "I asked if a wife could still get pregnant naturally if her husband had a vasectomy. The doctor said reversing it is risky, that it might mean never having kids again." Her voice broke completely. "I was terrified, George. Terrified that you'd ruined our chance to ever have a family." By now she was crying so hard she could barely breathe, makeup smudged, words dissolving into sobs. The four parents stood frozen, glancing between us, caught between anger and pity. Her mother rushed to hold her, but Willow pushed the comfort away, lifting her tear-soaked face to glare at me. All I could think was, what if you really couldn't have kids anymore? What would we do then? What about our family's future? Her voice rose, trembling with hurt. I never once thought about leaving you, George. Never. And yet you used a lie that cruel just to hurt me? To get back at me? The room fell quiet again, broken only by the sound of her sobs. I sat there still, my anger finally drained into something colder, a hollow kind of calm. Yes, I said softly, it was wrong to lie. But tell me honestly, why do you think I did it? I leaned forward, my tone cutting through the air. The night Makoto came back, you said you were working late. But instead, you had dinner with him until midnight. Then you told me the rain was too heavy to come home. You went out with my friends, our friends, and brought him along like it meant nothing. Then he shows up at my company acting like a savior, teaching me how to love my wife. I paused, each word sharper than the last. At that summit, you two looked so close anyone watching would have thought you were the married ones. Willow's face went pale. Even a clay statue cracks if you keep pressing it, I said quietly. Did you really think I wouldn't break? Silence swallowed the room. The parents exchanged glances, the anger in their faces softening into something else. Embarrassment, understanding. They finally saw it. This wasn't about a single lie. It was everything. The years of resentment, jealousy, pride, finally spilling out in one brutal moment. Willow's mother tightened her arms around her, her eyes glistening. Her father sighed, lighting a cigarette only to crush it out seconds later. My parents sat wordless, my mother staring into her teacup, my father frowning deeply. Willow wiped her tears, trying to steady her breath. Her voice was hoarse, but she spoke anyway. Yes, she said quietly. I made mistakes. I crossed lines with Makoto. I lied about working late. I hurt you, I did. She swallowed hard, her eyes shimmering but determined. But I never betrayed you, George. I never planned to leave. I thought we just needed time, space, to remember who we used to be. Her breath trembled. He came back and I got confused. He needed help and I was trying to be there as a friend. I didn't realize how it looked. I blurred the lines. And I'm sorry. She looked straight at me, voice breaking one last time. But there's nothing between us. Not anymore. Not ever. Her words hung in the air, fragile, trembling, painfully sincere. And for the first time in a long while, the room didn't feel angry anymore, just unbearably quiet. The room had gone quiet, the kind of silence that weighs more than words. Everyone could feel it. This wasn't something parents could fix or friends could smooth over. It was between us now, me and Willow. I looked at her. The defiance in her eyes, the hurt trembling beneath it, none of it felt fake. And somehow, instead of fueling my anger, her tears burned it all away, leaving only exhaustion, a bone-deep fatigue that made me wonder why we were even still trying. Time to adjust, I repeated her words, my voice carrying a hint of mockery, but the bite was gone. 3 years, Willow. Haven't I given you enough time? I tried to close the distance, but you kept pushing me away with your boundaries and independence. Makoto comes back, and suddenly those boundaries don't seem so sacred anymore. She just stood there silent. I pressed on, the words tasting bitter even as I said them. Don't say I lied to you. In the end, it's you and Makoto who can't seem to stay clear of each other. I didn't even hit him. That's me giving you face. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She just stared, like she was looking at a stranger, not her husband. So that's what you think? She whispered. That Makoto and I had something going on? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. My silence said everything. Our parents sat there grim and uncomfortable, but no one interfered. They knew. This was a storm only we could walk through. Willow's eyes shimmered. You're such a bastard, George, she said quietly, then turned to the elders and bowed deeply. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry. I can't eat anymore. I'm ashamed you had to see this. And just like that, she walked away. The echo of her heels down the hallway was the only sound left. My mother-in-law started to go after her, but her husband held her back. There was nothing left to say. My father sighed, his face heavy with disappointment. George? He didn't finish. He didn't need to. I loosened my tie, stood up, and said flatly, I'll leave now. No one stopped me. Outside, the night air hit like cold water. Sharp, sobering. I leaned against the car, mind spinning, when my phone buzzed. David. How's it going? He asked. My parents are here too, I muttered. So, did you guys make up? I don't know. It's complicated. Shit, want to grab a drink? I'm not going. I just need sleep. I hung up but didn't start the car. Willow's face from earlier kept flashing in my mind, the tears, the anger, the distance. It sat heavy in my chest, but before long, the sadness twisted into something sharper, annoyance. Why is it that she gets to cry, she gets to cling to her ex, and I'm the one who ends up looking like the villain? It's immoral, I said flatly, letting the words hang in the air. But Makoto had laughed earlier, saying that a goal scored by the goalkeeper makes the game more exciting. I'd never met anyone so shameless. And the irony? He was an overseas returnee, supposedly refined, cultured. What a joke. Disgusting, I muttered under my breath. Willow's expression shifted immediately. Her face darkened, though she stayed calm. The fiery woman who once snapped back at me without hesitation now just sat there quietly. Her hand, resting on her knee, tightened slightly, her fingers curling into the soft fabric of her loungewear. Did he really say that? She asked finally, her voice low, almost detached. Does it matter? I shot back, not bothering to hide the exhaustion in my tone. I stood up, walked toward the other end of the couch, and leaned against it. Anyway, you've blocked him, haven't you? Willow hesitated for a few seconds before answering softly, Then after a pause, she added, I made it clear to him. From now on, it's strictly work. No private meetings, no unnecessary contact. If there's anything to discuss, it'll go through official channels. Her words sounded like an explanation, maybe even a peace offering, but the frustration inside me didn't ease. It just sat there, heavy, silent, unresolved. Trust is like a piece of paper. Once it's crumpled, no matter how carefully you try to smooth it out, the creases never disappear. Do whatever you want, I muttered, picking up the remote and turning on the TV. The business news blared through the room, the dull voice of the anchor filling up the emptiness between us. But somehow, the noise only made the silence feel louder. It was like everything had reset, same house, same routines, same two people. But something fundamental had changed. Even when we lay on the same bed at night, the distance between us felt like a canyon. I could feel her breathing beside me, yet she felt miles away. Time passed, slow and unkind. Weeks melted into another month. David had stopped asking me out for drinks. Maybe he finally realized that I wasn't in the mood for company. Instead, he sent the occasional meme or dumb joke over WeChat, small attempts to pull me out of whatever fog I was in. Willow stopped mentioning Makoto completely. She even began cutting down her social gatherings, coming home on time after work, sometimes even early. On rare evenings, she would try to talk about a new project at her firm, a restaurant that had just opened, or a friend's engagement. I would listen, nod, give a few short replies, and just like that, the words would dry up again. The air between us would grow thick, heavy, unspoken things hanging in every pause. We both knew it. The crack between us couldn't be fixed just by avoiding the subject or pretending to be fine. We were both stuck in this thing, a marriage bound by family expectations, appearances, and that faint, stubborn thread of something that neither of us could name or let go of. The rain stopped, I said suddenly one night, staring out the window at the city lights and the clouds parting after another quiet evening. Willow followed my gaze and gave a small nod. There was a long pause before she spoke again. Dad asked me yesterday when we're planning to have kids. Her tone was light, almost casual, but there was something fragile beneath it. I turned my head slightly, studying her expression. What did you say? She smiled faintly, though it didn't reach her eyes. I told him, whenever it happens. Her voice had a soft, ironic edge. He looked a little disappointed. I didn't respond. My phone buzzed with a message, David again sending me a business card and some random comment. I stared at the screen for a few seconds before locking it. George, Willow said suddenly, turning to face me. Her eyes held a quiet sadness, maybe even resignation. Are we just like this now? The question lingered between us, heavy with meaning. She didn't have to explain what she meant. We both knew. I stared out at the neon lights blinking through the glass, my reflection overlapping hers in the window. I don't know, I said finally. The light in her eyes dimmed. She stood up without another word and started walking toward the bedroom. Her steps were slow, deliberate, as if she was carrying the weight of something she didn't know how to put down. Just before closing the door, she stopped. Her back still turned to me, she said softly, Flight Monday at 9. No need to see me off. There was a pause, just long enough for me to wonder if she wanted me to say something, anything. A 2-day business trip, she added, almost as an afterthought. Then the door closed with a quiet click, leaving me alone in the flickering light of the TV. The room half lit, half shadowed, like our marriage.